Hi guys, hi everyone, pleasure to be here. Not my first time in Athens, but still a beautiful place. And again, thank you for all your questions. It was really interesting, to hear how you think and also speaking to you, in between the sessions. So my session today is a little bit higher level, I think, because it's very good that during this conference, we have lower level things. We understand how to build agents, and now it's a bit more about strategy. Why? Because we are a large organization. We are more than 65,000 people, and we have to transform the whole organization to work in these new AI ways, right? And the reason for that is kind of a big problem that you might see on the stock market. During the last 6 months or so, for most of the consulting companies, like Accenture, Cognizant, including us, of course, the stock was plummeting. And why is that? Because there is no belief from investors that, this current business model is, working perfectly. But we are proving that it works in this new AI world. And I will be talking about that a little bit more today. So a little bit about myself. My name is Roman. I'm based in London because I recently completed my Oxford Executive MBA. But I also, I manage the large department of product managers and business analysts, as well as responsible for the whole competency in the company with more than 2,500 professionals in product management and business analysis. So that's why one of my tasks is to help those people to start using AI, but in a structured way, right? So, because we all know that AI quite often now is a Wild West, right? Because everybody uses it however they want, and it's very hard to control the quality and the result. So, I wanted to ask you guys, so how many product managers do we have in the room? Can you please raise your hand? Okay, now I see that. How many developers do we have in the room? Okay, who are the rest, guys? Okay, and how many AI builders do we have in the room? No AI builders. Okay, I will tell what I mean now just in a second. So let's start first from the future. So where everything is moving, we've been talking about that yesterday, a bit today, and we will be talking about that a lot, and why it's important to understand, because everything changes really fast. The things, even how Copilot worked before January update was super different how it works now, like Claude and Codex and all other models that help us to code. So this is an example I really love, and it actually appeared maybe 8 months ago or so. So in Meta, which is Facebook, we all know them, right? They have a lot of quite good product managers, and their engineering practices are pretty good. But what they're doing now, if before, to develop a feature and to ship it to production, you had to come up with an idea, come up with the metrics that will help you to, that will be improved based on this feature. But now they are doing it differently. They are actually prototyping the feature first, then bringing it to the board, and then they are deciding whether they want it or not. And I guess this is a huge shift, and they also understand that the market is changing, right? And maybe in a bit, the classical product manager is no longer needed. So that's why what's happening now is they name themselves as AI builders. And this is what I asked you. Maybe you already heard about this term. And I think actually this is one of the trends that we are seeing not only for product managers, right? The same is happening for developers, because developers now are required to be more into product management, right? Because if something is writing code for you, now you have to understand more about the product, more about the outcome that you are trying to bring. And of course, more about the architecture, right? Because I think, as previous speaker mentioned, architecture is still there, right? It's very hard to outsource it to AI yet. But, everything changes fast. So that's the first thing. The other thing is, I wanted to emphasize what we'll be talking about today. So there are two distinct, I would say, applications of AI. The first one is AI for business, and meaning that you have chatbots, you have different applications of AI that help business to sell more or to serve their customers better. In our case, it's more about AI for productivity, meaning how faster you can ship your product, how better you can actually, build the software you are trying to build, and that's about the second part. And I mean, you all heard also those ideas that Satya Nadella from Microsoft, he mentioned that 30% of code in Microsoft is written by AI. So, and one of the last, I didn't just have enough place on the slide, but our Anthropic colleagues also mentioned that the Claude itself was partially developed using Claude code. So they are using Claude code to develop Claude, which is really nice, right? And kind of gives you some inspiration about the future and where we are moving. Unfortunately, we are also seeing some symptoms, right? That consulting companies, for example, and a lot of other companies, like, for example, Oracle, right? They are almost having hiring freezes. They are having some hiring for some roles, but mostly they are trying to see how it works out for them with AI. Again, I think it's a third time during this conference we are trying to answer this question: will AI replace product managers, right? And the consensus is that it will not replace, right? Because, but humans using AI, they will replace those who do not use AI. This is very important that we are here today. But what's important, and we are not talking about, is that businesses that effectively implement AI will replace businesses that are not using AI. And it's even more fun because, all those Salesforce companies like Oracle and everything else, they are huge, right? They are like billion-dollar companies. And why they are so huge and nobody can challenge them is because, to write this kind of software takes years, right? And it's a huge moat for them, so nobody can challenge them. So now what is happening that with AI coding, with AI product development, it's much faster. So probably, and I think, again, we've heard those estimates, something that you had to spend 6 months to build, now you can build within 1 week maybe, right? It's a question whether you can make a quality production level, but still, okay, it's still possible. And what I like, I'm not sure whether, guys, you're checking or not. If yes, just raise the hand. Requests for startups from Y Combinator. This is a really nice place to understand where the market is moving, right, and where AI is moving and what we are expecting. So they publish every quarter a list of areas for startups. They think so. Y Combinator is one of the largest VC, let's say, incubators in the world, like venture fund. And they help you, they teach you with your startup, they give you some investment, usually it's $500,000, and then you can actually work with them to make it $1 billion company. And one of the things they posted recently is, it's hard to read, but it's SaaS challengers. What it means is they think that if you are just trying to copy a big SaaS company, and you are trying to build something they already have on the market, we can accept you in our venture builder, like venture fund. Why is that? Because the exact reason I just mentioned to you. It's much cheaper now to build those things. So now, if you build something more cheap, then you don't have to spend for some B2B enterprise software like millions or $100,000 per year. You can be much cheaper. So that's why that's another shift that is happening. And that only means, that we have to be more careful and we have to ensure that our business model changes. And and for consulting companies like EPAM, we also have to ensure that we are ready for all those shifts, right? That we are there. This is a bit complicated slide, but I just love showing it. The reason why for it, because we have it for the last 2 years or so, but it was like a prophecy. So we sat together at some point and we started thinking, okay, how it's gonna work, right? And at that point, we were somewhere between Horizon Zero, humans with autocomplete, basically, and humans with copilots, with some copilots. So, and now, during the last 2 years, we moved to humans with agents, and now we are closing on to agents with humans, right? Meaning that agents are doing all the job, but we are just there. And we are trying to help agents to do their stuff, or at least not, to mess up things for agents, which will happen probably soon. But the final wave that I also like talking about is autopoietic agents. So what that means that when you have a task, so we will have agentic systems that will understand the best configurations of agents to complete that task. So for example, now if you've had experience building agentic workflows, usually we are the ones who have to architecture the agentic flow, right? What agents do we need? Like which one will, let's say, create the architecture, which one will do the requirements, which one will create the code, which one will review and test. So when we are saying about autopoietic, that will be done automatically based on task. So you will just write a prompt, and then it will create that pipeline of agents. Now, what is changing for product managers? Again, a lot about that was said during this conference. First of all, prompt engineering is switching to context engineering. So guys, this is something very interesting. I also like talking about that, and I have a separate slide closer to the end about that. That it's no longer efficient just, I have this idea, just tell me what to do with that. No, you have to provide the whole context. For example, sometimes, we also work on a startup, to write a specification for the product that is in the middle, you have to provide the existing code base, the specification that you've already created, and then only based on that, you can write the new specification. So this is about context engineering. It's very simple terms, but the idea is there. And by the way, all main, again, companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, even Meta are trying to solve this idea of context engineering, how it can be done. That's why we have projects. That's why we have these RAG systems already connected, for example, to Claude, and so on. Then product requirements documents. Did someone hear about what is specification-driven development? Some of you, okay, 3, 4, 5, more or less. Okay, guys. So this is, I think, that again was mentioned yesterday. So before that, we had to write pretty high-level PRDs. Now, if we want for the code to be created based on PRDs, they have to be much more detailed. And it's very hard to do that, just by the product manager, because product manager is usually not the guy who knows all the technical details. And for example, when I'm creating a specification like that, it's sometimes very useful to sit together with the developer to review it, to see that all the constraints are set properly, because the idea is that AI will create the idea. It will come up with ideas of what you don't describe, right? It will just fill in the gaps with its imagination. And you don't want that. So that's why this scope management is very important. And of course, the final part is outcome auditing, so meaning that you have to understand how your final product performs, not just how it looks. It was always there for product managers, but now it's just more important, right? And it's easier to be done. And again, yeah, just compared to reviewing. But now, being conscious of time, so what changes, right? And what strategy did we set for ourselves as a company, right, in order to correspond to this new world that I just mentioned, right? So, and this is the challenge we are currently solving, and I want to share a little bit of experience and the approach how we are doing that. This is not, classical presentation that we had during this conference, so it's a little bit changed. Why? Because I will be talking more about change management, how to help people to become AI-enabled. It's, it's of course about building agents as well, but how to make it stick. So first of all, for the product managers, right, we have developed several levels of maturity, right, and it's also applicable for projects. So our projects, so I will start with that, we have 3 levels of maturity for the project. So the 0 level of maturity is you are using some AI, just like a chat, you are asking some questions, it helps you with some knowledge, but there is no systematic use. So that's 0, or 1. Then the next level is context engineered. So that means that you have project agents that have the project specifics. You have the properly prepared RAG for your project, for example, so something that we are using all the time, we have the document storage for the specific project that we are working on now, and it's available via chat interface for the whole team, right? So if you need to find, okay, tell me what was, the goals for this quarter, it will just answer you with a question. So this is direct that we are using almost on all projects that are on this second level of maturity. And on the third level of maturity, this is like when we have autonomous systems or agentic systems that fully work from 0 to some substantial result. Like, for example, like a discovery agent, right? What's discovery? I think most of you know, right? When we start a project, we start interviewing our customers, we start interviewing our users, we start trying to understand what we are building, and then we are taking this information and we are sending them to our agentic system that decomposes, asks questions, creates user stories, epics, all the system, and drafts the architecture for the review. So this is the autonomous discovery, but I'm describing only one of the loops. Because the other part of it, which is not, I think, product management part, but still, for example, in those projects, usually what we have is a dark factory. Have you heard about this? Dark factory, right? So what is dark factory? Maybe just quickly I'll explain it. Yeah? So dark factory comes to us from manufacturing. So dark factory on manufacturing, when you're, for example, producing phones, right, is a factory where the lights are off because there are no people near the assembly line. That's why it's a dark factory. So no human interaction is required in that factory. So we have taken this concept and we call it also in software dark factory. This is where you have a very nice specification in the beginning. Maybe you have, I would say, the initial architecture also in place, but then you just feed it in, and at the end, you have the tested and deployed code. So this is done with those multi-agentic structures as well. So as I already mentioned, you have an architectural reviewer, you have a requirements decomposer who decomposes that specification, you have a code writer, you have the code reviewer, and then you have a testing agent, and you might have a deployment agents as well. So at the end of the day, when you're just sending the specification in the beginning, you get the deployed code in the end. But this is for those third level of maturity projects, right? We don't have that much, but I think maybe about 10, 15% or so, we are trying to move them there. And it's much faster and much more effective, of course. So now for us to understand how to transform a team, because most of the teams, they are not working like that. They are not even close to that. They are, again, using some chat requests. They are using some code generation for their own tasks, isolated. So when we try to help them to transform, what do we do? And how it looks. Usually we start with the discovery. So we have a team. So I have in my team of 3, 4, let's say, consultants, internal consultants. We start with the discovery. We go to the project, we see the team, we see how they work. We map their AI literacy. So we just ask them, okay, what can you use? Do you know how to create an agent? Do you know how to properly manage the context? Do you have already the rack system connected to your project? So we just try to assess what is already there. We conduct some one-to-one interviews with them to understand, okay, guys, so what do you do? What can you do? What have you read? We have enough training in the company, freely available, but not everyone, uses that. So that's why we need to understand where they are now. And then we define the transformation areas and metrics. And now how that happens, we are actually conducting the workshop on the chosen platform. But before that, we do the proper mapping. So, for example, we have a process of creating requirements, writing a PRD, or writing a code. And it actually is a little bit different based on each project, each client, each specific, everyone is a little bit different. So what we do, we sit together on the workshop with them, and we just do this so-called, again, value stream mapping or business process mapping, for the development team. So we just, draw those rectangles by saying, okay, this is where we take the requirements, this is where we decompose them, this is where we approve them, and so on and so on. And then we identify which of those steps are most time-consuming, and which of them are most hard. And this is where we define like tools, what tools do we have and what we want to use, and which use cases should we automate first. And then we also proceed with one-to-one coaching, so we help people to transform, to actually understand, how this new, shiny AI machine should be used. And we are helping them to build agents for those workflows. Because building an agent seems easy, but it's easy after you build a couple of those, right? So you have to start with something. And finally, we measure the outcomes. After we implemented all those agents, we try to measure the productivity, we document those playbooks, so how do they need to work on this specific project, and then we hand off, and then our team that helps to transform, we leave, and we say, okay, if you have any questions, feel free to come back to us. So that's now a little bit more not about AI. So this slide is not about AI. It's about human beings and people and how do they operate. And what we figured out, and I think this is the basic, management theory probably, but we had to find out it also the hard way. First of all, your people have to have desire. Unfortunately, we still see some people who are saying, nah, AI is just a fad. It will fade out. It will not happen. It shouldn't, still the proper writing code, that's the best way of doing things. Or still, writing product requirements document by your hand is the best thing to do. That's it. And if this desire is not that, it's really hard to do anything. So that's why your leadership, your senior leadership, your executives, they should be really effective in terms of telling everyone, guys, this is our strategy. There is no way we will not work if we don't have that. That's the only way for us to continue as a company. Unfortunately, we have a lot of that. And now literally we are coming to the stage where we are saying, maybe you have those skill matrices, right? Where you have your job description and you have to produce product, write specifications, so on, so on. So these skill matrices, we now replace half of those skills with AI skills. And I think in about 6 months, we will be telling people, okay, you have half of your skills are traditional, half of your skills should be AI. And if you are not there, not sure whether we can continue working together. We will probably not fire people, but, the stakes are high. So we have to be careful here. Then competence, hands-on training. This is, I guess, not that hard, but there is enough of AI training out there. We have a lot of internal training. I also like, especially if you're using Anthropic now, I'm preparing myself for the Anthropic Claude Certified Architect certification. They have a lot of free courses on the anthropicskilljar.com. If you check it out there, it's really good. It will help your team to start understanding a lot about agents, about APIs, about MCPs, about how to build multi-agentic systems. So it's really good. But you have to have it. If a person does not know how to do things, they will never do it, right? Because it's really hard for them. They will okay, go and do AI. They are well, what does it mean, right? And finally, capacity. So capacity is about the fact that you're not telling only them to use AI, but you buy tools for them, you provide an easy access to them, but what's more important, you allow them to use, for example, auto-generated code, or you allow them to use PRDs that are generated, because sometimes it's prohibited by the policy or by the contract with the client we are working with. So it's also, and only with those three components, you will be able to transform your team and actually to make sure that they are using AI effectively. So this is a little bit more details about the elicitation, how it transforms, right, from just capturing insights to auto-summarized interviews. What I wanted to mention here, right, about the stakeholder interact via AI summaries. So we created now a tool that allows also the client to ask our RAG system about how our our system works. So basically, it's a simple RAG around the specifications of the product that we build, and also sometimes connected to code, but that depends on the situation. So this is good. And also in terms of validation, which helps us, we also, before actually developing the PRD, we don't want to overwhelm our clients with this speed, because now you produce specification really quickly, but if you have to have an approval of that, it's like, okay, new specification, new, one more, right? They have to work continuously with you, which is a bit challenging for them. So that's why what we did, we built it's not a complex tool, it's kind of a simple tool, but really useful one. We built a synthetic stakeholder tool. So what's that? We know which roles on the client we have. Let's say we have a CTO, CPO, CEO, like Chief Marketing Officer, and so on. So let's say we know the roles. We also have their LinkedIn profiles usually, and we just have the general role description. And then we create this, let's say, agentic persona description. So just a large prompt with all those details included. And then when we create a specification and we need to approve it with some of those stakeholders, we run it by that, let's say, additional prompt. I'm simplifying that because it's actually even a system with UI for us. And then we get the feedback. Okay, from this role perspective, this is the feedback you will have here. This is what you need to highlight. And it allows us to tailor a specific presentation, I would say, even not the document, for that specific stakeholder, or even to bypass it at all. So that's the idea. Now, a couple of things that I'm sure that do not work, right? As I mentioned, PM literacy is important to check. You need to understand whether people are on the same page with you. Do have the tool approval. Unfortunately, I think that maybe you don't have that problem, but we have it often, especially in banks. Tools is something crazy. So they are like, oh no, we are only allowed to use Copilot, but without AI Studio. But if you want the AI Studio, you have to get a specific approval for a specific person, and so on and so on. So it's really complex, but you have to do it if you want to have it successful. Again, you have to have agents tied to existing tools. So don't have your agents that's just doing something for you only in text. If you are producing requirements and you're using Atlassian, Jira, and Confluence, do it there. It will speed up things really. And measurable. Ensure you have to understand that this new agentic workflow will make it faster. And what not to do, top-down without daily ritual, if you do not have this repeatability that people are actually using AI every day, will not work. Training without permission, again, if you're training them in the tools they are not allowed to use, nothing will work. Agents without owners, this was a couple of times. So if you build an agent for them, and they are like, wow, this is magic, it works great, and they have no idea how it works, and they forget it, and then something updates and the agent becomes obsolete. So so you have to have owner even when you leave. And pilot without a clear next step. So you have to explain them why this is happening and what's the next step for them. So this is a slide that I think you can check later. Basically, this is the summary that I suggest you to use if you plan to transform your team to become AI-enabled, right? So you pick in one repeatable workflow, you ensure in the literacy, you ship one agent or an assistant for the team, and then you measure. So this is, I think, that presentations will be shared, so you can use it. And this is actually the extraction from our playbook. So this is something that we are using internally. This I mentioned, tool first thinking is bad. Do not start with a tool, start with the process. Piloting without a metric, also mentioned. Training without permission and strategy without ritual. So if you're building a strategy, but people are not doing that every day, that's problematic. And finally, what I wanted to pick your, again, ideas on that what I like about all these processes with AI transformation is we still, after, I don't know, how many, 4 years of using AI, I haven't seen a really good way of figuring out this open brain concept, right? Because what is happening, like you have this knowledge base, you can have a RAG, but how do you have it automatically, right? How do you have your code, your, let's say, tests, your specifications, your meeting transcripts, everything in one place, and when you're creating the new PRD, it already considers all this data, right? We have some experiments in that area. We are doing that partially, but I think it's still limited, by the context. It's still limited by the RAG because they have their own limitations. And here is a small, again, sorry for the size of the text, but that's another screen for this Y Combinator request from startups. One of the ideas they want is company brain. So they think that this problem is not yet solved, which means what is company brain? So this is basically a system that knows everything about the company, about the people, about how they work, about what processes are there, and you can actually use it to manage the company. So this is the idea I think I would like to see personally as well, because it's kind of challenging, to figure out how it works. But it's, yeah, if you have any ideas, let's talk, during the break. I would be happy to hear if you already had some ideas how it works. Finally, AI is taking over the world. I think the jobs are still not growing yet, even though we've seen, I think yesterday Mike was probably showing the slide that software development is on the rise. But we see still a lot of optimization, and I think it will continue, right? So the number of jobs out there, the classical jobs probably will reduce. They will transform into AI, but now we have to brace for impact. And just instead of conclusions, right? I think I wanted just to repeat things, that we've seen during those transformations, help people to be ready, and help them to also understand that AI is best in generating ideas, in helping them to prepare, but not create the complete product. And you have always to review the final result and its impact on the business, on the team, and what's happening out there. So that's why be vigilant, ensure that you are watching what's happening out there, and be creative. Use tools, new tools every day. Everything changes so fast that you really have to watch your back, on how things are changing. I don't know if we have still time for questions. But we can connect on LinkedIn, so if we don't have time for questions for now, feel free to message me or, just stay connected.
We can have a question.
Okay.
In the slide about the levers, about the capacity one, does it work for teams, for example, platform teams that are in the middle of delivering? Because a challenge that I see is that, okay, those are pretty nice and they can work in a kickoff of a new project, of a new feature, but what about the team that needs to deliver, needs to add features to a train that is already moving?
Yeah.
So, what have you seen such examples work there? Or?
Yeah, and I would say like 70 or 60% of what we do is actually transforming the team that is already working, because our projects, they can last for years because we are building that, updating, changing things. So we did it. It's a bit more complex, and the hardest thing in those situations is actually to ensure that you reserve time for this transformation. Because, it may sound like magic, what I mentioned today, but unfortunately it still requires for people to sit, to learn, to kind of try it out, to try the agents, see how it works, and it takes time. So usually when we do this transformation, it can take up to 4-6 weeks, and we negotiate with the management of the project that they allow us for some reserved time. It can be like 4 hours a week, can be 6 hours a week. Sometimes we've got up to 8 hours a week. So they almost like dedicated the whole day for people to be able to transform. Usually it was spread like, like hour, 2 hours a day, but that worked best. And when it did not work, when we failed, is when they were saying, okay, you'll find time somewhere. We do not reserve anything, you'll just try and go there, find time. Those situations, they do not work. When you are trying to do that, people will like, okay, come on guys, I have my job to do. Now you want something else for me to do? Like, how? You're not paying me more. So this is when it failed, a couple of times actually.
Since we're adding the human factors, there's a significant percentage of people, software engineers or product people in your case, that refuse to adopt AI because they believe they can do a better job in it. So how do you tackle that?
Yeah, so I mean, like the question was, how do we tackle, people who are refusing to to transform into this new AI-enabled way? So, like, there is always a spectrum. So first of all, with some people, you can sit together, and it can be like, you can move them through levels of resistance, I would say. So when they are actively resisting, they are just saying, no, it's not possible. You're just saying, like, here, what we did, before, here are the results, here are the feedbacks. We can bring someone in from the other project, and they're like, oh, yeah, okay. Sometimes it's pressure. We are saying, okay, you don't have a chance. Like there is no way you can just stay here in this team if you are not doing that, And they're like, just please try, or at least do not stop others from doing that, So that depends, of course, on the role who is resisting. And the final thing, of course, and unfortunately I have to say that, we are recorded, but anyway. So sometimes people have to be removed. So and this, it's bad. We try not to do that, but sometimes it serves a good example that that's our strategy. Because I mean, literally, the message there is we will not survive if we are not doing that. Guys, I mean, like, in 6 months, that's it. We don't have time. Like, the train is already there. We are still here. So we have to be there, like, long ago. So, yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.